So China just did their military parade. It's the biggest military parade ever done. And Putin was there, Kim Jong-un was there, as well as representatives from Mongolia and a bunch of other allied countries with the East. Notably, there was nobody there from the West. But I gotta say, from my standpoint, that was kind of shocking. That is a military that is, it's scary. They're huge. It's a massive military. China's military is gigantic, and their budget is gigantic. Now, a lot of times we talk about like, oh, the U.S. military budget is getting close to $1 trillion, and it's bigger than the next, 10 countries combined or whatever. But you have to understand something about our military. And one of the things is that we have this inflated cost of everything that we buy because of the military industrial complex, right? So I can remember when I was ETSing, I was getting out of the Army, and I went to CIF to turn in my equipment. And I remember I was missing one of those little plastic canteens, and they were going to charge me something crazy, like 20 plus bucks or something like that, for one of those stupid little plastic canteens. And I went off base, and I went to the surplus, and I got one for like $1, And there's a few other items that were like crazy expensive. And it just goes to show that like we're not getting a good bang for our buck. Yeah, we're spending a lot, but our military is not as well equipped as you would think having $1 trillion budget, right? I think far and away we still have like the best military, but I gotta say, when you watch that military parade, just the little bit that I saw of it, I was blown away by the discipline of those soldiers, by the cohesion of the units, the just professionalism. I mean, this looked like a real military. And honestly, I mean, even when I would still say that we had the world's best military by far, even then, it was like, we would do these mass formations and, military parades for certain events. And it just wasn't that impressive, But they were all walking in lockstep, and they just looked professional. Their uniforms were professional. They were a cohesive unit. And they didn't look like they were bogged down with the bureaucracy that has become the U.S. military. Now, I know obviously China is a massive bureaucratic structure, but I think for the most part, the PLA, or the People's Liberation Army, is kind of unfettered by a lot of those things, because it's like, no, just get it done, whatever it is. You don't have to fight through red tape. If a general tells you to do something, it's just done. It's not going through all these different levels of government bureaucracy to get things done. They just get it done. It's, I don't know, I'm a little afraid of that situation, because I know generally what our military, I've been out for 16 years, so I can't really tell you exactly what our military's up to. In fact, a lot has changed since then. But even then, we were transitioning to a kinder, gentler army. The Army Strong. It was the Army Strong era, where it was like no more tough discipline. You can't, like, we used to sing these cadences that were really off color, and would say, all these things about various. I don't even want to get into it. It was like kind of bad, honestly, but it was just to instill that killer mindset. That's what you're supposed to do. You're a killer. That's what you're supposed to be. And they just, they had kind of like by the time I got out in 2009, it was like you couldn't do any of that stuff. And I just see China just picking up where we left off. Like, they are not restricted at all in those ways. They are just there. There's no DEI there. There's no like quotas or anything like that. You know, it's probably because it's all Han Chinese. You know, that kind of helps, I guess. But at the same time, it's like you still have to compete with this. As the U.S. military, you have to compete. You can't go, well, what they're doing is wrong, so we're going to do the right thing. It's like, but they don't care. They're just going to roll us up on the battlefield if you keep doing, like, you have to have an effective force. And so, you know, and even with everything getting so automated and with drone technology and things like that, you know, they are definitely matching us in that. But in the end, a protracted battle is still going to need boots on the ground. It's still going to need people to do the fighting, right? Because you can't, like, eventually the drones, you run out of drones, or people learn countermeasures to drones. And then you're just back to a guy with a rifle in his hands, you know. And the PLA right now has, I think, 2 million people in it, which I think is about 500,000 more than we have. But make no mistake, they have a much bigger military than that. They have reserve forces, I think, that are more than 5 million. And there's 1.3 billion people in China. You could have a 100 million man army if you want, you know. I mean, heck, there's 100 million people in the CCP, just that apparatus. So you could easily have a gigantic expeditionary army to be able to start pushing their weight around. So anyway, but yeah, if you see that military parade, it's scary, man. Like, I saw that and I was like, oh boy. And they look professional. And remember, Trump did a military parade a little while ago, and man, that was unimpressive. Like, I looked at that and I was like, oh boy, like, no one cares. No one's looking at this going, oh wow. Like, this is, you know, this is state of the art. This is like a really disciplined military. I don't know. It just looked unimpressive for some reason. Like, you have to look scary, you know, and the Chinese did it, and they would do these shouts together, you know, these, they would do these, whatever, you know, like when everybody like shouts together. I don't even know what you would call that, but and we used to do that in the army. We used to say like hooah together or whatever, but you just never really got that, like, it just wasn't intimidating in my opinion, you know. But they really pulled it off, and it's kind of reminiscent of like World War II armies, you know, back when you know, Germany and the Soviet Union, and then the US military and the British military, when they would kind of like show off their military might, it was kind of reminiscent of that. And we haven't seen that in a long time from our military, if I'm honest, you know, even when I was in. So anyway, I figured I'd do a video on that, because it's just like, that's what we're dealing with. And we have to be able to contend with that. And I just don't know if we're prepared for it anymore. But anyway, thanks for watching.